Hey guys, black and white video for a black and white issue. I just got a Skype call from a fellow vegan activist, and he put to me the question, if I were standing in front of a room of 60 to 100 vegans, what would I do with the opportunity here in the town I'm living in, the town where I'm renting an apartment, the town where I have a home? And he was asking me this because tomorrow he's going to be in exactly that situation. He has the opportunity to give a lecture or give a pitch to try to make something positive happen in terms of getting people motivated or getting people organized. So I want to reiterate first and foremost, this is a question of what would you as a vegan say to a room of other people who are already vegan. And the second thing I want to emphasize was this made me immediately reflect, wow, that's an opportunity that I've never had. So although I've made my pitch again and again here on YouTube, I've spoken to an audience of people here on YouTube, I've put out my own, vegan manifesto, I've talked about questions of method and how to get organized and so on. I've never had the opportunity to make that kind of pitch to remove vegans. And there are different reasons for that, including the fact that it seems like the main vegan organizer here in Victoria actively wants to exclude me and silence me. And I've now sort of confirmed that by speaking to other people indirectly and asking what's going on, why can't I attend these events, why can't I participate, and so on. So if that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. And as soon as I figured that out, of course, then I also started getting in touch with other vegan activists here who are not so happy with the leadership of Jordan Reichert and who want to make something positive happen. Maybe I can start putting together some events, with the countercurrent of vegans here who've already grown disaffected with the, self-appointed dictator for life of veganism in this small town in Canada. We'll see what happens. But nevertheless, I've never actually had this challenge. The answer I gave this guy via Skype call, he's a Patreon supporter, by the way. That's how I know him. He supports me, pays $1 a month on Patreon to make this channel happen, which I appreciate, and which does indeed give me the opportunity to come here on YouTube and talk to my small and highly cynical audience of vegan aspiring activists. I said to him, look, what I would say in these circumstances won't surprise you because you've already seen my YouTube channel. I would put together a pitch that starts by saying, look, here we are in a room, we're 60 vegans or we're 100 vegans, but as long as each one of us is isolated, we're very limited in what we can do. And what I'm here to tell you is just how much we can accomplish with a group of just 30 people who are organized and motivated. I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking for your time and your interest in getting involved. I just saw a video on Lay Vegan's channel. So most of you probably never heard of Lay Vegan. I shared the link within Patreon talking about this video. Lay Vegan is a video talking about his attempt to his involvement in a movement to pass new laws, reforms concerning the rights of elephants in Pittsburgh. And the video involved, for example, advocacy and lobbying at City Hall concerning particular forms of cruelty against elephants used in circuses and zoos. And they succeeded. They've actually gotten some new laws passed. And close to the start of this video, he says something very briefly, like he says he's very grateful to have been participating with and involved with this group of people who made this happen. And he has a photograph, and I paused to count. I forget if there are 27 or 30 people in this photograph. But hey, there are 30 people in the same place at the same time working together to make something happen in politics. So if I were giving this pitch, I might put up that very example. I might put up that image and say, hey, here are 30 people in Pittsburgh who changed the law. Here are 30 people who changed the lives of a handful of specific elephants. So I don't know how many elephants there are in Pittsburgh. It's not like there are millions of elephants living there. Whether it's a few hundred or a few dozen, I can't say. And of course, they also created a platform for advocacy and engaging people on these issues to talk about animal rights, to talk about veganism, etc., fundamental moral and ecological issues that are at the base of this movement. I could put up some of that. And I would put forward a series of examples. I'd have to draw them out of a hat of, hey, let's talk about Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Let's talk about how a group of people who care passionately about an issue can form an organization that's nonviolent. It's not based on street protests. It's based on lobbying government, public education, and outreach. And that today has representation coast to coast in school classrooms. It's incredibly powerful that they do student education to try to convince people to not drive drunk, to not take risks involving alcohol, to not use alcohol irresponsibly, or to avoid using alcohol at all, etc., etc. I think their message is well known without me summarizing it. And by contrast, here we are as vegans, and as long as each one of us remains isolated, every day in schools across America or across this state or across this city, every day in schools, children are being taught that chicken eggs are healthy and that cheese is healthy. And in the school cafeteria, they're being fed chicken eggs and cheese, sometimes for profit, sometimes it's a kind of charity to feed students. And we don't have any kind of voice. We don't have any ability to dispute that or lobby directly with the school board. And we also don't have the opportunity to educate the students and challenge what's basically advertising and propaganda that's telling them things are healthy for them and safe for them to eat that are neither safe nor healthy, right? But if we get organized, if we become a little bit more like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, we could be a powerful voice that, of course, to some extent impacts the lives of animals, but to a much greater extent, influences the future transformations of our culture, changes human behavior culturally and even legally and legislatively. So I put together a bunch of examples like this. Another one I like to talk about is, leather, and the fact that leather isn't just immoral. It has terrible ecological impacts and also has terrible health impacts. Leather modern leather is cured with a chemical called chromium hexane. If you actually just have a closet full of leather clothes, believe it or not, the air pollution coming from that leather is damaging your health, it's damaging your children's health, and so on. And we can present some really scary, scientific facts about that. Now, in terms of starting a conversation with meat eaters, people who've never heard about veganism before, it's completely different to approach them and say, hey, you know what, I want to let you know something you probably don't know. Did you know leather actually has negative impacts on your health? Having a leather couch or leather clothing in your home is exposing you to chromium hexane and these other health damages. In terms of starting a conversation, in terms of a basis for whether it's lobbying government or outreach and public education, that's completely different from walking up to a stranger on the street who's wearing fur and telling them, hey, morally you're a bad person because you're wearing fur in public. It's just different, all right? And you could structure an outreach and public education campaign and political lobbying, etc., around this issue of leather, for example. So this is my answer to his question. What would you do now if you had the opportunity to make a pitch this way to a room full of 60 vegans or a room full of 100 vegans? And I had to reflect, I've never had that opportunity, but for those who've been watching this YouTube channel for a long time, it won't be surprising to you. I would probably try to pick out some case studies and some examples like that. Whether it's something small and specific, like, hey, 30 people in Philadelphia managed to pass cruelty legislation, anti-cruelty legislation to protect elephants, or if it's something larger, like, hey, let's look at some cases in India where the whole city was declared vegetarian. Let's look at cases where slaughterhouses were shut down when you have a culture that really, embraces veganism or at least vegetarianism on some level, where it's possible to lobby for profound change in that way. Or if you try to pick out some issues that offer a specific opportunity for outreach in between. And, what you're really asking people to do at that first phase is to give you their email, give you their email address or give you their Facebook contact, give you some way to get in touch and keep in touch, and to start with that first faltering step, whether it's 5 people, 15 people, or 30 people, so that we can move beyond the very limited impact we can have as isolated vegans. Of course, if you're an isolated individual person with a vegan diet, that's great. That's tremendously morally positive. But the potential we have to make social change, political change, cultural change for the long term, to educate others, and yes, to impact ultimately the lives and welfare of specific animals, the ecology of specific river basins, oceans, etc., that's going to come by taking those next few steps. That starts with me asking people, hey, I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking for your time, your attention, your email address, and for us to try to get organized to make something positive happen.